go. Welcome to Matt Talks Back, episode number 3. Third episode in, and we're already repeating guests. But you know what? This is a very important conversation, and we got ourselves one hell of a source right in Beijing, China. Joining us on the show again today is Trevor Metz. He is a podcast host and producer in Beijing, China. He also runs a bar there as well, and he works for Chinese media. He helps them kind of clean up some of their stories and things that they send out internationally. So he's got a good finger on the pulse of what's going on in that area right now. Today, of course, we're going to be talking a lot about COVID-19 and probably get into a few other little things as well. Some of the side effects of this crazy pandemic that's going on too. Trevor, thanks for joining us once again today, my friend.
Matt, how are you, buddy?
Really good, man. Really good. It seems like BC's kind of getting this COVID-19 thing sort of under control. Have you been keeping up with it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that your numbers are starting to flatten out. But when I think under control, it's still not under control. And that's something that we've seen here in China, is that this thing tends to reemerge over and over until it's completely snuffed out. Even Beijing, it's a city of 22, 23 million. And now people have come back and they didn't have any cases for about, 10, 15 days. And now they've got a few cases here and there again. So when you say you got it under control, this is something that's not really going away. In fact, I think what's going to end up happening is that it's just going to become common and it's just going to become like the flu. And that's how we're going to consider it after a while.
Right. You're just going to kind of get used to this thing and it's going to be the new world all over again. I gotcha.
Yep.
And one thing that I've noticed here too that kind of scares me a little bit is people are now getting a little bit cocky too, because we didn't get hit all that big because our hospitals were not overrun with cases. Now I look at my Facebook page today and I saw a battle go down where a guy was throwing around conspiracy theories where he thinks all the governments got together to do this so that they could install 5G towers without us frickin' noticing. So it's really brought out the whack nuts at the same time. And when those guys come out and they get cocky, sometimes things go sideways. There's just too many idiots in this world. So,
well, it's funny because I know that there is a lot of that shit out there at this point. And really, there's nothing obviously to it, but I wouldn't get cocky. This was one of these things, man. Like, it's just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And I know that people are getting sick and tired of it there. But again, we've been doing this since beginning of January.
Yeah.
And it's still not over. And people are still using social distancing. Of course, they're using the hand sanitizers. Everybody wears masks still. 100% of the population is wearing a mask when you go outside. And a lot of people wearing gloves and all that nonsense. But it's effective, and they've managed to keep the numbers down here, where people back home, they just still aren't doing any of that.
Yeah.
My brother's a bus driver in Vancouver, and he posted this video and it went viral. We put it on his Facebook. They made him take it down because he was wearing his uniform.
Right.
But basically he said, I'm scared shitless. I'm scared shitless for my family. It's not the company that's done anything wrong. It's the passengers. We tell them that, look, I'm sorry, the bus is full. You can't come on. There's too many people in a confined space. And they're like swearing at him and ready to go him, and like it's crazy. It's the behavior that you think that it's all over, and it's not over. It's completely not over. I mean, we saw a big breakout in China not too long ago, just up north in Heilongjiang province, and that's sort of up near the Russian border. And this stuff, it's just going to keep coming back and coming back. And so until you completely stamp this out, you've got the problem.
And the only way we stamp this out is one of two things. You either let this thing rip through the population and kill who it's going to kill, or we find ourselves a vaccination. Is there any other out that you've heard of from that?
No, there's nothing. There's no vaccine. And from what I understand, I'm not a virologist, but from what I understand, like, that's at least a year away.
Yeah.
If they ever, because, like SARS, when that happened in 2003, they started working on a vaccine and they never actually finished it because SARS died out.
Yeah.
The difference with this and SARS is SARS, while more deadly, wasn't as easy to transfer. This is so much more transmittable than SARS was, and that's the issue.
Yeah, and that 2-week incubation period, too, is a real bitch as well, because you can be carrying it for a long time and not know. So you spread that thing for a 2-week period before you even find out that you were a carrier. We saw that a lot with NBA players and NHL players that were spreading it around. Rudy Gobert, the dude that was joking that when they were talking about it, and then he reached out and touched all the microphones, and 2 days later found out the freaking guy had it and went, oh, shit, I didn't know. So, yeah, there's still a lot of education needs to happen. I'm not seeing many masks here. There's a lot of misinformation about masks, though, and I think the government's fucked this up a little bit. Now, originally there was information where they were saying, oh, unless you have the N95 masks, it isn't even going to help you. It's not going to do anything for you, so don't worry about wearing masks. Now it looks like they were saying that so that people wouldn't buy out all the masks and they would be able to have them for the medical professionals, because they've turned a full 180 on this, and now they're saying, oh yeah, wear a mask, even if it's just cloth over your face. That's wonderful.
Well, I think what it does is that just sort of prevents the spread from you.
Of course.
It's not doing anything to stop you from getting it. Like if you touch things and stuff like that. And this is where most of it comes from. It's not so much airborne as that it's you touching shit, and then you're touching your eyes and your ears and your mouth and whatever. And that's where things are going squirrely.
Right.
But I highly recommend people wearing them. I don't know why. I mean, at first when this started, I'll be honest, I didn't have any. And they were getting bought like you wouldn't believe here, like hotcakes, right?
Yep.
And this girl I know, my buddy's girlfriend, she said, here's a pack of masks. You need this. And I went, yeah, whatever. It's not going to be that bad. And then look who's stupid, me, right? Because it clearly became bad.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I'm still doing the exact same thing. We haven't been able to find any here, so we're looking at making some ourselves now too, just to make sure that we're protected. But yeah, masks are definitely the way to go. Don't let the misinformation steer you the wrong way.
No. I mean, here's the thing. Like when we're in my bar, I have a box of masks, just the surgical ones. Shit, maybe I'll go try and find that for you. Just the surgical ones that, they're in boxes. They're just cloth, right? But if you put these things on, there.
Oh, okay, yep.
And it's just a piece of cloth, and it works. I mean, it's not for you, right? It won't stop you from getting it. But I mean, this is how everybody walks around all day long.
Yep.
Mine's full of dog hair because I have 3 dogs, but yeah.
Do they get sweaty? Do they get moist, wet?
The N95 ones do, and it's starting to get hot here. I think today's supposed to be like 24 or 25 degrees.
Right.
So, it gets pretty bloody hot, and wearing these things in the summer, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. Now, one thing that just came out here in BC anyway, they've shut down camping. They've shut down all the provincial campgrounds. They don't want people in the backwoods either camping. Is that something that happened in China? Did they shut down camping and stuff like that there?
Well, there's not a whole shitload of camping here, to be honest. I mean, you can head out to the Great Wall, and there's parts of the Great Wall, they call it the Wild Wall, that haven't been restored.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really cool, actually. You can go up hiking, and yeah, I think you can camp there, but there's been reports of like villagers in those areas chasing people away with rocks and sticks.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like no shit. Like they like charged these foreigners and like whipping rocks at them to get them out of their area.
Because of COVID? They've heard about COVID and they just don't want them around, or they just don't like foreigners?
No. It's not just they don't want foreigners. It's because they're worried that foreigners are spreading COVID. So,
gotcha.
So that, but it's a little bit different here. We never shut down bars here.
Right.
They basically did on their own. I think I shut for 5 days over the spring festival.
Right.
And then I think another maybe 4 or 5 days after that, just on voluntarily, while this shit was sort of happening. And then decided to just reopen, and the government was okay with that. Like,
wow.
They let us open, and they wanted us to have everybody wearing a mask, unless you were eating at the time or drinking or having a smoke or whatever. They wanted you to sit only 3 at a table at the most, try and keep a meter apart at least.
Yeah.
But really, they didn't. That was it. And then they kind of relaxed that now. So
wow.
There was a real crackdown for a while. They were going after all these sort of venues that were letting people, like they were taking the piss though. There was like hundreds of people inside these places.
Right.
And like you can't do that in these times. But for a small place like mine, like if there's 20 people or 30 people inside, like that's fine. They don't care at all.
Wow. It looks like some of those relaxation of some of these restrictions is coming to BC just in May by the sounds of things. Some of that's going to happen. We don't really know what relaxation is going to go down. For my sake, I'm really hoping bars and pubs are able to open again, because I know right now I've already seen, I think I have 74 bars, pubs, and restaurants in the northern part of BC that I service, and I've already seen 12 of them close down permanently. So we got to get these guys back open again so they can start paying their bills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this has been like I've seen there's only 2 Canadian bars really in town, maybe 3. in all of Beijing, and one was called Four Corners. This guy named Jun Trin, and he's split. He's gone back to Canada, and he's shut his doors. There's this other place called Caravan. It's gone. Like all these places that you knew and loved, they're all gone. A lot of these guys, though, they've taken a lot of investor money, and like those investors are just taking a bath, right? Like some, if you've got 4 or 5 locations, like you're just taking a beating right now.
Yeah. Well, some of our bars and pubs are now opening up again. They have relaxed alcohol laws here in BC as well. So now, if it's sealed alcohol, they can now serve sealed alcohol delivered. But still, that delivery fee is just screwing them right over. I can't see them making a whole lot of overhead.
Oh, no. Delivery fees are bullshit. I mean, I have to do that here, and it's almost not worth going and doing delivery because they take 20% right off the top.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the profit margin out the window. Right. So in BC, have they are bars open now, or are they still closed?
No, they're still closed. They're open for pickup and delivery. You can do pickup and delivery as long as you have social distancing in place. And with these relaxations coming in, I would guess that they're probably going to allow these bars and pubs and restaurants to open again. We got to get the economy moving a little bit here because, man, these places are dying left, right, and center. The only thing that's moving is liquor and cannabis.
Yeah, well, when you talk about dying left, right, and center, if you open up too fast, that's what you're going to get with people, though.
Also true.
So,
yeah.
So I really, who am I? I'm not a politician. I'm nobody. But I mean, I really would suggest people really take it slowly. Like, I know the economy's suffering. I know people are suffering. I mean, I'm getting my ass kicked.
Yeah.
It's just something you just got to go through. And if you rush it, you're just going to get it back. And then it's going to be a nightmare all over again. If
we could keep restrictions in, kind of like what you guys are doing, though, where you keep people 6 feet apart, instead of having 150 people in a place like, we've got the Black Clover here in Prince George, maybe we cut it down to, 40. Maybe you can only have 40 in that bar. Do you think, is that basically what you guys did?
Yeah, and I think that's a way of going about it. And here's the thing, as long as you walk in, like I said before, I think I told you that any place you go into, they take your temperature. Right. Everywhere everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you try and get into an apartment building, you try and get into a mall, you try and get in a restaurant, you try and get in my closed community. Everybody's got this thing on their thermometers, and they take your temperatures.
How do they take that temperature? Which end?
Yeah. I keep bending over, but no, oh my God, no. The other thing is just have hand sanitizer on you at all times. Bars, I have 12 bottles of that shit, bottles where people can just bathe in it if they want.
Yeah.
And just have that constantly, and then I think, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely have to be a much more cleanly society at the end of the day. I've heard that they're trying to shut down wet markets and things like that throughout China. Have you heard anything about that?
Can you still see me? I can't see you.
Oh, yeah, I can still see you. One sec here.
As long.
All right, we had a few technical difficulties, but we're back with Trevor Metz from Beijing, China. All right, Trevor, where were we? I can't even remember now.
I have no idea.
All right, let's just dive back into it then. So we were talking about camping. We were doing the restrictions here. Now, one thing you said before we got on air was that one of the side effects you're noticing is that foreigners are not being treated so well in China right now. What's happening with that?
It's really weird because let's be honest, this disease originated in Wuhan, and it looks like from somebody consuming bats or something that got bit by a bat that they consumed, and they figure it came from some of these exotic animal wet markets. Mm-hmm. So the deal is with the wet market, it's not what you think it is. I went to a wet market yesterday.
Right.
And I bought some pork, I bought a ton of vegetables, and I should almost take a video for you at one point just to show you what it actually is. And it's completely different than what you think it is. It's like a farmer's market, but apparently in some of these smaller cities, in Beijing, you don't have any of that shit. But I guess in places like Wuhan and some of these other places, maybe they had some of these exotic markets that were a little bit more unique.
Right.
Let's say. But anyway, they're mad at foreigners now because they think foreigners are spreading the disease. And this is the Chinese trying to change the narrative of what's actually happened. Because the rest of the world's pointing at China, clearly. Right. And then basically fighting back, saying, it's not us, it's you guys, basically. Is ridiculous. It's like a children's thing. But I personally have been yelled at in a restaurant. Guy came in, I was having lunch with this girl from Costa Rica. I love this food. It's called malashangguo. Oh, Jesus, best food you've ever eaten. But guy came in. I could see he was weird, and he was eating very fast and sort of staring at us. And then he got up and he was yelling at the waitress, "Why do you let these foreigners in here? How come you're letting these guys are dangerous?" You know, and I'm just like, oh wow, okay, shit. So he stormed off, and that was fine. But then a couple days ago, I had a doctor's appointment at one of the hospitals here, and my blood sugar looked at and stuff. And this guard, I don't know, he's wearing this red armband. He's wearing black and this red armband. So he's part of the community kind of communist group.
Right.
They have these committees sort of like within the communities. And this guy, I guess, is charged with not letting anybody in. So I tried to go in the hospital, which I'd been before. This is my doctor. And they're just like, "No, you're not coming in, man. This guy's telling me no." And he's like putting his hand right in my chest. And I'm starting to get like pissed off. And the other guards who know me they're like trying to shoo me through. No, go ahead. The doctor and the nurses had to come out basically and pull me in. And this guy even followed me into the lobby of the hospital. And I could hear him yelling from my doctor's office that there should be no goddamn foreigners in here. And like, I was just like, the doctor was really pissed off. He had a translation thing. He doesn't speak English. And he had this translation thing on his phone where he speaks into it. And he was saying, and it translated to, "Ignore that bastard. He's just a bastard who thinks he's got power, and ignore that." And I was just like, right on, okay, cool.
That's unreal. Wow. Let's get back to those wet markets a little bit. That's interesting, and I don't think a lot of people here understand what it is. It's just become a buzzword now, where they hear wet market and they're like, "Oh, that's where the coronavirus came from." So,
Like, dude, if you go in there, it's like going into Granville Island, like going into a farmer's market.
okay,
It's probably not as clean, but they're not. Like, if you go in there, it's not bad. Like, I buy my shit there, and I'm not like afraid to eat it. I bought some brilliant vegetables yesterday. I got beans and cabbage and broccoli and asparagus and it's all fresh as hell, and it's beautiful stuff, right?
so is there a government agency that goes down and does like a health check on these places?
Sorry, can you say that again, Matt?
Is there like a government agency that does like health checks and does cleanliness checks and stuff on these places?
Oh yeah, no, I gotta like give those guys like gifts to run a restaurant, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But yeah, they have a health department that goes around and checks these things, and I'll tell you now, they're awfully stringent right now.
I
Like
bet.
it's the cleanest I've ever seen any of these markets when you go in there now. It's basically like going into a supermarket, really. It's just fruit and vegetables sitting out, and then the guy's got like a meat counter, and that's it. They have like a little like tiny little restaurant bits in there as well. Like, it's not this evil market that people think, like where there's bats and dogs and cats hanging from the ceilings, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that has just become a reason for people to be xenophobic and racist too. Because, I mean, really, if you want to look at any country, there's animal abuse that goes on there in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're going to Spain and they're doing the running of the bulls where they destroy all these animals at the end of it and they're ridiculously cruel to them, or you go over to, I don't know, I can't think of any more right now. That's just the first one I thought on the top of my head. Animal cruelty like that happens in a lot of places. Shit went sideways on this one and it went worldwide. But I think animal cruelty as a whole just kind of needs to be stomped out. And it's not that China's a terrible place overall. You've been there 15 years.
well,
Why? Go ahead.
well, one of the things they actually did here, Matt, is that they've now banned all exotic animals. So you can't sell them across China. I'll tell you what, when the Chinese government wants to do something, they do it. So that practice is over. They're not kidding around. One of the other things is they've now banned dog food, like eating dogs.
Yeah.
And if you remember, that was always a big thing. They used to have this, I think it was in Jilin Dog Meat Festival.
I hated
where
that.
everybody would sit around. Yeah, and they would like they were right militant about it too. They were going to eat them dogs. Well, they can't anymore. That's now been put on the ban list, and they're starting to implement some laws. There's no animal cruelty laws here, though.
Right.
Like none. And I think it's always they were afraid of pissing off farmers, and so they just sort of didn't do anything. But I think now they've are basically coming around. they understand that they got to jump into the first world, right?
Well, that's good too. I mean, there was a big outrage a few years ago on Facebook too about those little keychains coming out of China where they had like little turtles in it and little salamanders inside of plastic keychains, and they were alive, and then they'd be alive apparently for about 4 or 5 days, and then they'd die, and you'd have a keychain with a dead animal in it, and that was kind of like,
What a bunch of assholes!
yeah, offside,
Yeah,
right?
what a bunch of assholes!
Yeah. So, is China, are they kind of getting ready for a second, third wave type of thing? And what are they doing to be ready for that? Are they just going to continually be checking temperatures?
Well, first of all, they've sealed off the border. You can't fly in. Like, if you wanted to come to Beijing, you can't.
Right.
If I leave, like, Beijing is really weird because it's the political capital and they're going to have this big government meeting soon. They've basically declared this like region 1 or something. So let's say I wanted to go outside Beijing, like just literally drive 45 minutes, get outside into Hebei province and come back in. I would have to do a 2-week quarantine if I just leave the city. Yeah. So this is how serious these guys are taking this. They've sealed up no, can't fly in or out. You can fly out. I think there used to be like 8 flights a day to Vancouver, and now there's like 1 a week.
Holy shit.
Yeah, or maybe 2 a week, and they're sold out until like the end of May or something, and they cost like $5,000 to go one way.
Oh wow, okay. So it's a shutdown thing. Then I don't know if we can really do that here. It would be really tough to. I mean, we don't have. It's not like we have guards sitting at our provincial borders or anything like that. Maybe we could stop flights to slow that down, but. We do have the American border closed, which should help us for now, for at least another 30 days.
Well, I would say I wouldn't open that up until they get a grip down there, and they don't have a grip for shit. I mean, that's a nightmare down there.
Yeah, well, and they just shut it down too, because I have a brother-in-law who is working down in Alabama. He came back for a week and then turned around and went back to the States, and they didn't even ask him a fucking question at the border. They just let him go.
This is it. This is what Mike Wester, the guy that I have on my show tomorrow, he was talking about, that the American guys, like, they were coming back from China and they were saying, "You coming from China? Yeah. Do you feel sick? No, go ahead." And that was the level of screening that was happening.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No wonder this got to where it got to.
So if you have the coronavirus, your temperature is automatically above a certain level. Is that why they're checking temperatures?
I swear to God I had it. You know what I mean? I have no idea. But back in December, I remember thinking, Jesus, I don't feel good. And it feels weird. And it didn't feel like, and everybody kind of felt that way. I think more people had it than I think like millions and millions and millions had it.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions around the death toll there too.
Okay. Here's the thing that pisses me off about Western media. They accuse China of not, and look, I'm not sticking up for China, but they accuse the government of covering up numbers, right? But from day one, they said we are not reporting and tracking asymptomatic patients. From day one, they said that.
Okay.
And like that was out in the briefing in public. They said this, like, the only cases that we're going to track at this point are people that are showing symptoms.
Right.
So now they up those numbers to include some of the asymptomatic people.
Right.
And it jumped by, a huge amount. And everybody's going, aha. You see, they were lying about their numbers, and it's not. They told you at the beginning that they weren't including those numbers, so that's why you're seeing that jump, and people are politicizing everything now.
Yeah,
and they're being super hypercritical of everything China does. I don't believe their numbers here. I think they're bullshit, but I don't think they're as bad as it has been in the past when, like, reporting SARS and shit like that.
So one report I saw, and I don't know how they got this info, but they were talking about funeral homes in and around Wuhan, China. And they were talking about the delivery of people's ashes coming out of those funeral homes. And that's how they were counting what they thought were the bodies that came out of this thing. So they were looking at China's numbers, and it said something like 300,000 deaths overall. But they were looking at these funeral homes and how many people had to line up and the appointments they had to make to pick up the boxes of ashes. And they were saying that if it took them this long to do it and there was this much time, that it was more like 1 million people that were coming out of these places overall. So instead of 300,000, like 70% more. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I heard vague things, but I don't know for sure if that's accurate or not. But from what I also understand, just the death rate in total like overall in general has gone up, not just because of COVID, but I guess because of COVID, people weren't getting some of the treatments for their chronic illnesses, and I don't know, maybe, I don't know, whatever's happening, the death rate in the general population of the world has gone up apparently.
Well, and if you wrap your head around that, that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, if I have a little sickness right now that, could be cancer or something like that, that I would normally go get checked out, there's no fucking way I'm going to the hospital at this point. Not until this
Well,
stuff's cleared up.
I would if I were you.
Well, of course, but in your head, there's no freaking way you want to be down there on a maybe.
Well, here's the thing. When all this shit happened here, I had to go in for something. I'm not going to get into it, but I had to go in for something, right? Because I'm diabetic. And so I had some blood sugar related shit. And I couldn't go in because my Chinese wasn't good enough to explain exactly what was going on, right? Like, this is fair. This is something you want to have understood.
I got you. Yeah.
And so I had to wait for my ex-wife to get out of her thing. She was in a compound just on the edge of the city, and she was locked in her community for months. They wouldn't let them leave. If they let them leave, then you couldn't come back.
Oh shit.
To home, right?
Yeah.
So I had to wait for her, and that took like an extra 2 months before I finally was able to go in and see the doctor.
Right.
And this is how people die. This is exactly how people die, because I couldn't go see a doctor on my own. Plus, they weren't really taking anybody at that point. They were too worried about people with COVID to worry about my blood sugar,
Right. Well, that's you bring up your ex-wife. Actually, that brings something to mind for me as well. COVID times in China. People are lonely. Mental health is a problem. Dating, pretty much non-existent. You're a single guy. How's the dating life been?
Shit. It's unbelievable. So I've, because I don't even want to say it, but because like they're just not meeting women. I went on Tinder, right? And so like I've met like hundreds of women, and not one of them. I've met one time. That was before this whole thing really took off. And since it's taken off, not one girl has even met me for a coffee or a drink or anything. They'll talk to you all day and they'll send you pictures or whatever. But we're not hooking up. I'll tell you that.
How many dick pics have you sent in the past 4 months?
One.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so on the mental health side of things then, has there been any serious mental health issues that you've seen in Beijing? Like, have you seen people going absolutely crazy in the street somewhere because of isolation, or have people dealt with it relatively well?
Well, the divorce rate's gone up quite a bit across China because people are stuck inside with each other, and you're not meant to be stuck inside with each other 24/7.
Yeah.
So that's been happening. The divorce rate's going up. People are just climbing the walls a bit. I think they're almost just bloody used to it now.
Yeah.
Like I talked to some of these people, and they're just used to, like, this is a new normal almost. But at first people struggle. Like, I noticed that you guys there, what I'm seeing out of the news there and people's comments, I remember that feeling here after the first month.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's freaking out after 1 month. But I mean, to be honest, you guys should be doing 4 months of this at least.
Yeah, and it's probably going to get to that point too. I mean, they have said that we're going to have social distancing restrictions in effect, probably right through the summer and into fall.
Well, what are you guys doing for school? Like, are the public schools going back at this time?
So here's what they're doing. It's computer classes. They are basically doing classes over things like Zoom, Skype, whatever the teachers can kind of work together. Teachers are going into the schools. They're doing their classes from there, or some of them are doing them from home. And just trying to connect with the kids that way. But it sounds like it's been a bit of a shit show, as you would think it would be.
Well, you get no hands-on lab work, and you don't have that experience of being in the classroom and interacting in that special way. If you need a little extra attention, like, I'm sure it's a shit show for everybody.
Not only that, but now we get into the fact of, like, some of these kids can't afford a computer at home, or they can't afford a webcam, or good luck fucking finding a webcam at this point, because there's none of them available. Everybody's bought everything up at this point over here too. So there has been a bit of a struggle with that. Kids are trying to do some schoolwork, but it seems like it's a bit of a mess at the moment. What did you guys do for school over there?
No, they're still doing the same thing. The schools haven't opened here. Some of the schools have started to open in other areas, but Beijing's like the school year is basically over. I don't think they'll reopen until September. They've got a big problem here though, because there's a lot of international schools here, and you pay like 200,000 or 200,050 kwai, which is like $40,000, $50,000 a year to go to these schools, and they need foreign teachers, and they've all left, you know, because what happens is all the teachers leave for the spring festival, go on vacation, and then they got stuck in Thailand or Cambodia or wherever they were vacationing.
Right.
And they shut the borders here. And so like 90% of them have left, and they have no teachers here. You know, they're trying to do their shit online, but you know, and people are scattered all over the world. There's time zone issues. There's all kinds of stuff. But yeah, no, it's a mess. I know this chick that owns a school here, teaching English, and I'm supposed to see her later actually. And she was now giving away her classes and still having to pay their teachers just because they don't want to lose the students, and like just trying to hang on for when things do go back to normal, which who the hell knows when. I mean, I'm supposed to be taking Chinese classes, and I haven't seen my tutor since before Christmas. And she said, do you want to meet up and do this thing? And I sort of went, not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, maybe I'll start again. But like, they won't. Okay, here's the thing. She used to come to my place, and we would do classes here in my apartment. But now they won't let her into the building. So I have to meet her at Plan B and sit there and do it at my office instead.
Right. Nah, that's not comfortable. That sucks too then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I was actually we went out today. We went and got tacos at a locally owned taco place here in town. And I was chatting with the owner who I used to work with at Jim Pattison Broadcast Group, Patty Knezovic. And I asked her how things were going, and she said the first couple of weeks were really tough. Nobody came out. Nobody wanted to go in anywhere. She was having a really tough time. But she said the last week and a half or so, people seem to be figuring out this new way of living. And we went in there, and I mean, everybody was 6 feet apart. They had tape on the floor so that you could see where you had to stand. They had big partitions in front of, the workers and the people out front. I don't know, slowly but surely people seem to be starting to get this going. It's going to kill a lot of businesses, though. People that can't adapt, they're done, and they're going to be done quick, which is unfortunate.
Well, like I said, I'm getting kicked in the balls repeatedly here. One day is good, one day is terrible. One day is good, one day is terrible. And you can't base your staff levels on that. You can't base your ordering on that. Your suppliers are, everybody wants their money. Everybody's got their hand out looking for cash, right? And you just have to tell people, sorry, I can't pay you right now or right away. And yeah, it's rough, man. Like my buddy Rick, he owns like an entertainment company, and he does like big shows, and well, that's done.
Yeah.
That's his whole staff. Like he had like 20 employees, and they're done. The big, they have to forfeit their rent and their deposit, and like it's nuts.
That's a sad thing too, man. Concerts, sporting events. Do we see sports coming back in the next year?
I don't see it until next season. I mean, they keep talking about finishing off the year. Like, look at English Premier. You know how big that is, right? And the thing is, you can't just give Liverpool the cup right now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're going to win, and everybody knows they're going to win the league. But it's the teams at the bottom who get relegated.
Yeah,
and they're really close, and that's millions of pounds if you get down or if you go up. And these teams. So that's what's going to happen. That's just not going to happen. NHL, there's no way we're going to be playing in August. No way.
No
way. And this whole empty stadium thing, the players are still there together in locker rooms, and it's just stupid.
And spitting on each other and sneezing. Yeah, I mean, there's too many bodily fluids going back and forth there too. There's no freaking way you could open that up again until.
I just don't see it this year. I see it starting up again next year. And I don't know what you do with the Stanley Cup. Do you award it? Do you not award it? This year it just didn't happen, like with the Spanish flu. Actually, I think they still played during the Spanish flu.
I think they did, but I don't think they awarded it. I would have to look that up, actually. Yeah, I don't know. It's unprecedented times for us for sure. When you haven't seen this in 100 years, it's hard to see all the side effects that are going on as well.
You know what? It's like this guy Mike Wester was saying on my show. He figures SARS is still around. We
really?
just call it, and we just call it the flu now. he figures this will be just like that. That because when you get the flu, nobody gives you like they don't just find out what exact strain of flu you have, right? Or whatever. They just say you got the flu.
Yeah.
Or, have you ever had pneumonia? I had pneumonia last year. You ever had that? That sucks.
Yeah.
And but was that COVID or was that SARS? Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah. Very true. So basically, you think we're looking at a new world order, and that's how China's dealing with it right now. They're putting these things into effect, and you don't think it's coming out.
I don't think China's going to open up until the U.S. and the West gets a grip on it. And I don't think, like, for instance, they won't open up to Canada because it's next to the U.S. And we can't open up to the U.S. because it's a shit show.
Oh, they just opened Florida beaches yesterday. Isn't that fun? Yeah.
Oh, I know this Chinese chick who's just an absolute idiot that is in LA, and all she does is post on Facebook about her going, I love the quarantine, and she's out in public, no mask, just running around like a moron. Of course you love quarantine. You're the only one out here. Like go home, you silly bitch.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You know what? I mean, this might be the thing that actually pulls Trump out of office before the next election here, with him being so stupid. I think he was pretty much a shoo-in before this. I think this might actually put Biden in, believe it or not, which is also a scary thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. These guys, I mean, they're so out of touch, it seems, with what's actually happening. But Trump's an idiot. I mean, saying how he just wants to open these things up. And I understand he wants to keep his job and he wants to keep the economy flowing. But, you got to take people's lives into account.
This is what you get, though, when you put a fucking reality show host and a businessman in charge of your country. You're going to get somebody that only looks at numbers and only looks at fucking dollars. That's exactly what they should have expected.
Like Angela Merkel in Germany, I can't remember what she was like, some kind of like a nuclear biologist or something.
Yeah.
And that's why Germany seems to have fared quite well. And then instead of her, you got Laughing Boy over there, orange. Even when I start talking about that guy. However, I will say this: I do agree on some of his things.
Me too.
I agree that he shouldn't fund the WHO. And to be honest, that whole organization's a mess. And I would be pissed off too if I were him.
Yeah.
Why are we giving money and then they're taking orders from, the Chinese, and they're sort of colluding and not being upfront about this. And yet the vast majority of the money comes from the US. I think the second biggest backer of the WHO is Bill Gates.
Really?
Yeah, I think. And you're just going, okay, well, F these guys if they're going to not really service you and they're doing nothing for you. So, I mean, there are certain things, he has engaged China where nobody else has really engaged China because China won't play fair.
Yep.
If they can take advantage, they'll take advantage.
Yep.
They're completely self-centered and they really just look out for themselves.
Yeah.
And I've been living here for a long time, 15 years. I know what it's like. And maybe, somebody sees this or hears this, they'll get pissed off at me. But it's a very self-centered society, and their foreign policy seems to reflect that as well.
Really? So it's a self-centered society. So the individuals there in China are self-centered?
Well, okay, let me put it this way. If you're family, and that's golden. Family means everything. Mm-hmm. But if you're anybody else, F you. Beat it, pal. It's competition
to the fucking core.
Well, nobody helps out anybody here, right? Because let's say somebody gets hit by a car or a bike, like an old lady, and then I went to go and help her, she would turn on me and demand money out of me.
I've heard of this, yeah.
Yeah, and this has happened many times. So they put in a Good Samaritan law to try and stop that. So you can't do that. But they'll collude and say, oh, no, it was this guy,
Fuck.
And then... Yeah, no, these things really do happen. So you got to really, don't get me wrong. There are some lovely, 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 caring people in this country. But sometimes I get a little frustrated with this self-centered. And what you hear all the time is, this is China. You're a foreigner. This is China. Do what we say or get out of my country.
Right.
They're racist as balls. And it's happened to me personally, so I can say that.
So do you think that that's something that's born just out of a need for competition because there's so many freaking people over there?
I don't know if it's that so much as that I think the system has created it.
Okay.
You know, they're so okay. So what the government does here is they use nationalism to divert any kind of issue. So they have complete control of the media, right? So
Right.
everything you see and hear is basically government approved and written. You know, they call it the propaganda ministry, and so they're told to be nationalistic. They're taught that in school.
Right.
But you know, like imagine if we went up to somebody that was from another country and said, "Hey, this is Canada. Get out of my country." You know, like it's just unheard of. You know, like,
They do it in Alberta.
well, you know, okay. One of the things they've been doing here is they've been posting those stories about Chinese being harassed and discriminated against in the West.
Yeah.
But they won't say any. They've come out and said publicly, we don't have discrimination in China. Nobody's doing that in China. And that's absolute bullshit because I know what's happened to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a large population of foreigners that live in China?
There was like, yeah, like in Beijing, I think there used to be about 100,000 or so. I don't know what that number's at now. In Shanghai, there's probably like 400,000 maybe.
Really? What?
Yeah, Shanghai, big foreign population.
Do you know quite a few of them? Why are they there?
Well, Beijing's a little different because this is the political thing. So a lot of them are either diplomats or journalists. Those are the sort of guys I know. I know a lot of international teachers, and there's a lot of English teachers here as well.
Right.
That's lucrative shit, man. So like I heard English teachers are making about, 25,000 kwai a month or more. And that works out to about $4,000 a month.
Holy shit.
And that's, tax free. Like that's your take home.
Wow, I do know a couple of people actually that were over there doing elementary school English and making, like they said, great money. They said the rent was they said the rent was high, but the money they were making was more than enough to cover it and to keep them going throughout all of it.
Well, my rent is usually 8,500 kwai, which turns out to be, I'm not even sure what that is. About $2,000 about now.
A month.
A month.
Wow.
Yeah. Two grand Canadian, but he's lowered it. He actually lowered it down to 6,500 during these troubling times.
Right. Oh, that's nice. He's helping you out. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. My landlord's boss. Like, I love that guy. Like, he never asked for nothing. Like, I never get him to fix shit. Like, I just do my thing. He's also a journalist, so he just sort of lets me go, and like, he doesn't bug me. I don't bug him, and he's letting me have a break on the rent. Like, I got a lot of time for that guy.
Nice, right on. One thing I wanted to ask too, one thing we've seen here, people have been freaking out a little bit about animals. Some people have been taking their animals back to the SPCA because they're worried that maybe their animal's going to get COVID. Is that something that happened in China where people ditching their animals left, right, and center because of this?
Yeah, at the very beginning, we saw some of that because there was all these rumors out there about animals carrying the disease and people were abandoning their pets.
Yeah.
But I think that's been stopped. I think that one of the things I did see right away, the government was putting out information saying, don't do this. Okay. It doesn't come from your animals. Don't do this. And so people stopped doing that. So that they did kind of get to that quickly.
Unless you have fucking pet bats at home, you should be fine. Everything should be okay. Yeah.
There are lots of bats here though. Like they're always whipping over. Like at night, I see them all the time.
There's a ton of them here in BC too. We just haven't gotten to eating them yet, which is good. I think we'll stay away from that now. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, that's all I wanted to ask you today. Is there anything else that's gone on there in China that you wanted to bring up?
Just, I don't know, be good to each other. Try and be cool, be calm, and don't push things. Don't hurry things along. Just sort of let it happen. I know that people are frustrated. I know that people don't have as much money as they need, but just relax, let it play out, don't push it, and be cool to each other, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's the best advice you can give at this point, because that's where we are right now. People are just fucking frustrated. We're not dealing with the overabundance of problems in the hospitals. We don't have a whole bunch of the infections here yet. The biggest thing we're fighting is just, really, at the end of the day, it's mental health. Let's be honest.
Well, and here's the thing, though. If you do all of a sudden have a big explosion, don't say it can't happen, because it happened the first time. That means it can happen again.
Yeah.
So just, if you do have that, you gotta just be aware and like hand sanitizer and masks. That's all I can tell people. If you can get them, use them.
Yeah, and that's one good thing that is happening here. I know in my company, some of our Diageo brands, some of the distilleries and stuff that have been closed down, or some of them that they're not using right now, they fired them back up again, and they're making hand sanitizer instead of making liquor in it. So that stuff's going to be widely available soon. I think that's great advice as well. Get your hand sanitizer. Wear your damn masks when you're out in public. That means in stores. That means on the streets. If you're passing close to people, wear your masks. And if people do that, we should be okay. We should be able to crush this thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
Love it. Hey, thank you very much again for taking some time with us there, Trev. I'm going to try and connect with you again every couple weeks or so and just get some updates on what you guys are doing, because basically we're looking into the future with what's happening there. So it's kind of nice to get those heads up. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Anytime.
Beautiful. Have yourself a great afternoon. We'll chat again soon.
All right, Matt. Take care.